All right, we're going over every single bug, mob, boss in Grounded. I'm pretty sure this has every single one of them in the current state of the game, the current update of the game. Looks like everything's here. So I just got done beating Grounded, beat every boss and optional and mandatory boss. Pretty much fought every enemy, a lot of them over 100 times with multiple different weapons throughout different stages of the game. So I have a fresh opinion on these bugs. We're going to be putting them on a tier list, going from S to F, just an overall rating. No, difficulty will be a factor, but that's not going to be the main component of this list. We're just going to be going off on overall usefulness, design, how fun it is to fight, or how useful they are in the overall game, and basically just going over an overview and put them in the list based on my personal opinion, obviously. So I do have some pretty strong opinions about some of these guys, but some of them are kind of like meh to me. So we're just going to start off with the Aphid, which to me is honestly A tier. I mean, super easy to kill. I don't think at any point in the game that they take more than one hit to kill, from what I remember. Easy source of food. They're everywhere. You can knock them off. You can knock it off blades of grass, and they'll fall to their deaths. You can find them all the time in the haze when the gas is up, and they'll die to the haze quickly. Yeah, and if you have like a spicy weapon and stuff, it's just free food, free heals. They heal like a good quarter, maybe a third of your HP when you eat them as well. So they're a pretty good source of healing. Unfortunately, they do not stack unless you put them on a drying rack and turn them into dried aphid. Then they do stack, but since they expire, they do take up space in your inventory, which is kind of annoying. You can't carry as many as you want of them. They are a bit harder to kill than like the Weevil, for example, or the Grub, because they do run pretty fast and they do run from you immediately rather than the Weevil pretty much ignoring your entire existence. Yeah, probably my personal favorite source of food if I see it, but to be honest, I was pretty much just ate mushrooms for the most of my playthrough, so I didn't really use aphids too much unless I wanted to use them as a source of healing. I wish these ads would get the fuck out of my face. But yeah, aphid A tier. I think it's a pretty solid choice for them. They're pretty easy. They're found throughout the entirety of the map. Easy to kill, free source of food, especially if you have a spicy weapon or tool. Like I used the axe and made it spicy, and that was a really good source of food. Way to get food right there. Weevil, not as prominent as aphids from what I noticed, but they are easier to kill. They're not a one-shot though, but they do ignore your existence and don't really run away from you even when you're hitting it. So they're a pretty decent source of food. They also draw the Weevil head, which you can turn into a gas mask, which is an essential item in the game. You do need the gas mask to, for example, use the haze, enter the haze. You'll even bring it to late game to fight like the green shield bug and other stink bugs. So you do need the gas mask. So that is a huge piece of equipment that you'll need throughout the game. But I don't like them as much as aphids. They do drop food as well. I don't think it's a guaranteed chance that it'll drop food. But they also make the Weevil shield, which is like your first early game, which is the first shield you get. And it's pretty easy to repair it because all you need is Weevil meat, which you just, once it's low, you just melee a Weevil and get the meat from it, and it's an easy full repair. So yeah, the fact that it gives a shield, food, and the gas mask puts it in B tier. Grubs, you can use grub sludge. Well, for one, they're super easy to get. All you need is a shovel and then hit them, and they don't really do much after that. They just kind of sit there and wiggle. And after that, they're a one-shot. They use the grub sludge to make smoothies. I'm not really a big fan of using grub sludge to make smoothies because I really don't use smoothies until the later game. They also drop meat, which isn't a guaranteed drop, I don't think, but they can drop multiple pieces of meat. And they also have grub hide, which can be used to make armor. I think other things, maybe certain tools. I can't really remember if they were used to make tools off the top of my head, but I know they make the grub armor, which is pretty decent armor early game, but not super useful. I usually would rather just use the acorn armor, which I think this is part of the acorn armor recipe. Couldn't really tell you for sure though, but I didn't really use them much in late game, but I did use them quite a bit in early game to craft stuff and maybe make a smoothie here and there. But overall, just not a super useful bug for like in terms of like gathering shit. So that's just going on C tier, playing middle of the road. Gnats, You can tame them to make them into a pet, so it's same with aphids and weevils. But you can tame gnats. I really don't know what they do in particular. They can drop meat and gnat fuzz, which gnat fuzz is used, I believe, to also make the gas mask and also to make the bow, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's not used to make the bow, is it? I know it's used to make the gas mask. You find them all throughout the game. They're pretty easy to find, especially at night when they go around the lamps and sources of light. You can get a bunch of them and just farm them there to get a bunch of meat or just get gnat fuzz for whatever you need the gnat fuzz for. So, because I think you use gnat fuzz to repair the gas mask. So, I think it's the only material that you need to repair the gas mask. So that makes them pretty useful. I didn't tame any bugs throughout my playthrough, so I couldn't really say how useful they are when they're tamed. All I can say is that they're honestly pretty useful. So I'm gonna put that below Weevil, but above Grubs. I don't know what the difference between this fly and the one that's right here. I'm guessing these are the ones that spawn near the Black Ant Lab or the Black Ant Hill, where those trash bags are. Maybe they do some kind of area of effect damage if you don't wear a gas mask. I don't know. I'm just going to put it in B tier as well. Tadpoles drop meat. I don't know how effective their meat is compared to anything else. Obviously, you can put it into making like the food boxes and stuff like that. Overall, I don't think they're super useful, and I really didn't use them as a source of food. I only killed them like a few times just to see what they dropped, and then I cooked their food, and I really didn't know the difference. I don't know if it gives you more food or if it gives you more health or what, but honestly, just gonna put that in C tier. I mean, they're not bad, but I hardly ever did use them. These are little boat bug things. I'm pretty sure they give you oxygen refill if you kill them, and they also are used to make the fins, so you can swim faster underwater, which I pretty much never used after I accessed the lab and had the bubble helmet, because moving faster underwater didn't really matter to me. I just kind of went in and went out whenever I needed to. So I didn't really sit around and cared about using the fins. I pretty much never used it in late game when I went back to the pond ever to get like wax or algae or whatever, or even Brussels sprouts inside the lab. So honestly, below Tadpole and C tier, they're not bad, but I think they are useful because they can refill your oxygen. But that's pretty much it. Scarabs are extremely useful because they're used to make jewels, like the different jewels you can do to get things. I think it's from tier 7 to tier 8, and then tier 8 to tier 9, you need 5, and then 10, so you need 50 of them to get to tier 9. So you need 15 of these sparkling shells that only the scarabs drop in order to do it. So they are extremely useful late game. But the thing that annoys me about scarabs is just how annoying they are to fight. Or not really fight, but to kill. They are a one-shot, so I guess you're better off using a ranged weapon to kill it. Because every time I try to chase it down with a melee weapon, they dig down, and once they start their digging animation, they're invincible. So once they start, usually when you have a melee weapon, unless maybe you're wearing light armor with Natural Explorer, maybe you can get it with a melee weapon, but most of the time you're not. So what I usually did when I wanted to use a melee weapon was go to the underneath the shed and use that PVC pipe that spawns like 4 or 5 of them and just kill them there. That's pretty much the only place I went to get scarabs, because when I find them in the wild, they literally run away so fast and they dig so quickly. And once, like I said, when they start that digging animation, they're literally invincible. So they're super annoying to kill, but they're super useful in late game. But I hate them, bro. I hate chasing them down. If it wasn't for the undershed area with the PVC pipe, dude, I would have been miserable trying to get everything up to tier 9, especially when I was like changing sets of armor and stuff, or changing weapons. I don't really think, no, you don't use jewels for armor, I don't think. So to get armor to tier 9, you only use it for weapons. So when I was changing weapons out and maxing out different types of weapons, man, that was super annoying. Red ants, I mean, they're passive, or they're neutral. I didn't tame or didn't befriend the ant queen, so I didn't have them. They're neutral by default. I don't think taming or befriending the red ant queen does anything. I killed all the ant queens, just saying, but they're pretty easy to kill. They're usually Early game, they're a pretty good source of getting armor and tools early game, and they're pretty easy to find throughout the map, especially at the Red Ant Hill. You'll find hundreds of them, and can actually be a pretty big obstacle because of how many there are in the Red Ant Hill. I think I died a couple times, or at least got my armor pretty low and my weapons and my tools pretty low because of how many I had to kill and fight off. Because you get the one freaking soldier ant on you and you try to fight back with the soldier ant, get hundreds of freaking worker ants on you and you get overwhelmed. So they can be kind of challenging early game and even maybe a little bit mid game, especially around the Red Ant Hill. But after the early game, the usefulness for like killing them is pretty low. I don't think I ever collected them in the mid game because I didn't need to. You use them to make you can use red ant armor and the red ant great club and maybe a few other things. So not super useful. I'm just gonna put that in C tier above the tadpole and the boat thing. Black ant is a bit more useful because you can make the black ant scimitar or whatever, the black ant sword, and you can also make the black ant shield, which is just an upgrade over the I believe it's the black ant shield, right? The shield you get. I think there's 4 shields in the game, which will be an upgrade over the Weevil shield with more durability and such. So they are pretty useful in that account. Actually, I don't think you can make the sword with the worker ants because you need the soldier ants to do so. But you know, overall, they're kind of annoying on the shed though because they attack you on sight. But everywhere else in the map, they don't attack you on sight. They're neutral. They don't really overwhelm you as much in the Black Ant Lab as they do, or in the Black Ant Hill as much as the Red Ants do in the Red Ant Hill. So for that, it's kind of nice. But overall, they're just, I don't know. I'd say they're better. Probably top of C tier. I think they're better than the Red Ants. But they can be annoying at times, especially on the shed when they attack you on sight. Ladybugs are super useful early game because they give you the first set of heavy armor, and they actually are pretty challenging to fight in the early game, but super easy. And once you know, but it's super punishing if you miss the timings of the blocks and stuff. But once you got it down, they're pretty easy to fight, to be honest. And they give you really good armor, and are pretty useful even to the late game because I'm pretty sure you use their shells for other crafts in the late game as well. So for that, they're pretty useful. I think you use it to make the brood mothers. The hedge brood mother's summoning item. That's pretty useful, even though ladybirds drop them on a higher rate, I think, the shells. But you can also use them with ladybugs. And they're also passive, or neutral, so they don't really bother you that much. They're pretty cool, I guess. I like to look at ladybugs as well. So I'll put them in like top of B tier. Bees, you really don't run into bees very often, and most of the areas they seem to be neutral, except around the picnic table when there's a huge amount of them. But they're pretty easy to fight. They're kind of like mosquitoes, where if you get the perfect block on any of their attacks, they kind of like get knocked out for a little bit, and it makes them pretty easy to kill, especially with like a fresh weapon. Like I used the mint mace, and they usually got 3-shotted by the mint mace. So they're kind of a nuisance, but they're not really difficult to fight. I don't think I ever used anything they dropped either, because by the time I really fought enough to use their armor, I was already way past that point and didn't really care. Or their stinger spear. I'm kind of disappointed that the stinger spear, I don't think it does poison damage at all. Now I'm thinking about it, but I can't tell you for sure because I never used it. So, but I don't remember them using poison damage. So, really don't know what to say about the bee. I really didn't mess with them except for on the picnic table. So there really isn't much else to say about these guys other than I guess they exist. So I'm just gonna do like right here. Ladybug, another bug that I've never really faced. Another neutral one where don't really bother you unless you attack it. Really don't have much to say. I probably killed like maybe 3 or 4 of them in my entire playthrough. I didn't really see a need to do so. I don't think any of their drops are useful in crafts unless you want to make like certain decorations and stuff, I think. And I also think they can drop a charm on a rare drop, or that might be the moth actually. I'm pretty sure they drop a charm though. It's like the goo ball or some crap. Didn't really want it, didn't really use it, so I never got it. So I don't know. Yeah, they're honestly like C tier as well, but like the bottom because I never really messed with them, and they're kind of cool to look at. But I'll put them like below the B, I guess. right there in C tier. Didn't really mess with them. So, oh, there's two roly-polies here. I really don't know what the difference is. I'm guessing this one's in the ascended yard and this one's in the bottom of the yard. I really don't know the difference. Maybe they're in health pool and drop rates. To be honest, roly-poly, they're passive. They're like the only passive enemy in the entire, or passive bug in the entirety of the ascended yard area. Oddly enough, so they don't mess with you unless you attack them. Pretty easy to fight. They don't really have too much health, especially with a fresh weapon like the Mint Mace. They're actually pretty weak to a lot of things, and they drop really good stuff. They do the tough gunk, their shells, and I think something else. But you can use your shells to make roly-poly armor, which is one of the better armors in the game, one of the better heavy armors. So you can definitely take roly-poly armor to the end of the game if you really wanted to. So that's super useful. I think they're also might be used to make the Black Ox hammer, but don't quote me on that. Speaking of which, I haven't even thought about the tools like the shovels and stuff that some of these guys drop. I think the Black Ant drops gives you the shovel, the Black Ant the shovel, tier 2 one. But not really trying to go into too much crafting stuff. But yeah, I put them like top of B. Let me, yeah, those are pretty much on the same level. I don't really, honestly, no, I'll put them in A. Just because how useful their armor is and how easy they are to fight. Moths, didn't really mess with moths. I don't have anything to say about them. I think I killed one moth. I don't really know what they dropped. I don't think at the point you find them, because I've only ever found them on the stump, which is so late into the game. I don't think anything it dropped was super useful. So just put it like bottom C, I guess. Red soldier ants are pretty useful because you can use them to make, they drop acid glands like the larvae do, and you can use the acid glands to craft certain things. Also, they drop what you need to make the red ant club, which is a decent weapon early game, but not super useful compared to other things. But they're pretty easy to fight, and they're like the first like real hostile enemy you'll face in the early game, most likely. So I really don't know what else to say. I'll just put it above the grub here in C tier. Another C tier. We got a lot of C tier so far. Mites, fucking can't stand mites. They get so annoying in the late game because they constantly attack you, even though they don't do hardly any damage. They only drop mite fuzz, which is useful in certain recipes, but not overall that useful. And there's so many of them in certain areas, and they just get annoying when they chase me constantly and attack me as they follow me. Super annoying. One of my least favorite enemy types in the game. Spoiler, I don't like dust mites, and I don't like freaking ticks either. So they're going to be rated pretty freaking low too. But I think mites might be my least favorite of all of them, because it's just how frequently they appear in the lower yard area, and just how annoying they are, how they freaking chase you and lunge at you constantly. And I just want to rip my fucking hair out, because like at the point, like even at the end game, I'm at a point where like they're nothing to me, and like I just wish that some of the enemies would recognize like how far you are in the game and just want to attack you, because it makes no sense why mites attack me. F tier. Larva, can't stand larva either, but at least the early game they're pretty useful because you can make the larva blade, which is one of my favorite early game weapons. Its ability to do poison damage and such. But there are so many of them in certain areas that they get so annoying to fight and actually can overwhelm you pretty easily and kill you. I've had a few deaths in my playthrough playthrough because I just got simply overwhelmed by larva, because there's just so many of them, and they'll just absolutely freaking destroy you in some cases. The normal larva are probably my least favorite out of the three, but I'll put them in like D tier, honestly. I really don't know the difference between buzzets, tazets, and all that crap. I believe this is the ones that spawn in the hedge lab. The ones that kind of spin around and hit you. And they go, yeah, and stuff. I actually kind of like these guys. They're kind of cool. They give you raw science. It's the only drop they have is raw science. But I like the sounds they make. So, yeah, I'm just going to put them in like top of B tier because it's how funny the sounds they make. Water flea is another enemy. I think they only drop their food. I think they only drop the water flea meat, which I don't really use very often. I kind of ignore them completely. But in some areas, like especially in the undershed little water section and the inside the tire on the Ascended Yard, and really inside around the Castle Mordrak area and that water area. They're so annoying. It's them and the freaking spiny ones are so freaking annoying in those areas. Like everywhere else in the game, they're not bad. They're not bad. But you get like 20 of them in one spot with the freaking spiny ones too. Dude, your health is just getting shredded. Absolutely shredded. And you can only attack them with like the trident, daggers, and that's it. That's all you get to fight these things. So if you don't have that, you're just getting overwhelmed. And even if you do have it, it can be super annoying to fight these guys underwater because they attack so fast and you attack so slow, and the spiny ones have a lot of health. But we'll get into them later. Personally, do not like the water fleas just because of that. E tier. The Oreweaver Spider is a very intimidating enemy in... Oh, this is the Oreweaver Jr. Oreweaver Jr. is not as intimidating, but they are kind of a hard fight in the early game, really early game, but they're probably the first spider they can actually take on, and they actually do drop spider parts, which you can use to make a lot of things, especially like spider armor, which can take you into the late mid game before you get like the antlion stuff, which is what I did. So they are pretty useful. They can actually poison you, which is weird because the normal Oreweaver doesn't. The only other spiders that poison you other than the Oreweaver Jr. is the Wolf Spider and the Black Widow, and obviously the Broodmother boss fights can poison you. But it's kind of weird that the Oreweaver Jr. can poison you, but not the normal Oreweaver. At least I've never been poisoned by the Oreweaver. So don't quote me on that, but I've never been poisoned by no Oreweaver, only Oreweaver Juniors. So by themselves, they're pretty easy to fight, especially even in the early game. Obviously harder than like the Red Soldier Ant, but they are pretty useful in the fact that they can drop webs, which can be turned into fucking string, and they can drop spider parts, which can be crafted into armor and later in the game. So yeah, I'm gonna put them in like... And they're not super hard to fight. I'm going to put them in like the bottom of A. Spiderlings, though, are super annoying. I don't like them. Not nearly as much. They can't poison you or anything. And they're kind of just like a small nuisance. Kind of like the mites. They're all over the hedge. You find them a lot into like the little dens that the wolf spiders are in. And they're just annoying to fight. And if you attack them, sometimes a wolf spider will come out and chase you and you'll die because you're under-leveled for the wolf spider or something. So yeah, I can 100% understand... Or in my opinion, I just don't like the spiderlings at all. They only drop web fiber and that's it. So they're not super useful to fight. And I usually try to skip over them when I can. Yeah, they're going in D tier above everything else in D tier. Black soldier ants, there's not really a huge difference between them and like the black worker ants or the red soldier ants. They give you the black ant sword and that's about it. They're not super prevalent. They are super annoying though in the Black Ant Lab area because they do spawn quite a bit, and it can be like 5 in one spot sometimes, and that could be pretty hard to fight when you're just now entering the Black Ant Lab because they have quite a bit of health at that point. So don't really know what else to say about this guy other than I don't know. They're an ant. They're an ant type. So we're just gonna put that right here. Next is the Tazit, which has like a little taser shock thing on the end of it, which isn't really much of a difference between the Buzzets. So, yeah, we're just gonna put that there. And this guy, I think he shoots like the balls of light, the balls of thunder, or some shit at you. I really don't even know where these motherfuckers spawn. So, I don't know what I don't really know what to say about this guy. We're gonna put him in like C tier, like right in the middle right here. Next up is mosquitoes. Hate mosquitoes, and here's why. You'll be doing some parkour shit, especially in like the undershed area, and you'll get right to your last jump to where you get into the den of the freaking Black Widow, and the motherfucker will hit you with a charge hit and fucking knock you off. And these motherfuckers spawn anywhere there's fucking water. These motherfuckers are there. They do drop a decent their beaks, which can be made to make mosquito beak sword or whatever the heck, which has lifesteal, which I did use a little bit in the early game, but wasn't crazy useful. Especially the tier 2 version of it, or the tier 3 version of it, or whatever. I never used it. Lifesteal was not very useful in the late game. So, and I think the tick sword basically just did it better. They're super annoying because they chase you for so long. They have a super long aggro distance from what I've noticed. They have that charge attack which knocks you off of things when you're trying to like jump, because there's a few jump areas in the game. And these motherfuckers, if they're there, you might as well just stop what you're doing and fight them because they will do that charge attack. and they will kill you. But on their own, when they're not super inconvenient, they're super easy to fight because you just hit them with a parry once and then they're knocked down and they're pretty much an easy kill at that point. So yeah, not a pretty annoying enemy. I'm gonna put them in like D tier at like the bottom. Honestly, I just hate fighting them. The infected weevil, which just does a self-destruct attack and only drops the mask. I don't think it drops any meat. Like actually kind of scary when I first fought them in the haze, hearing them like make noises and run at me when the freaking fight music starts, dude. It's kind of scary, I ain't gonna lie. I can't put them any higher than normal weevil because it just they don't drop anything really, so it's going to D or B. The infected mite, which has a ranged attack, which shoot little fungal spores at you or something, and they do very little damage. I usually ignore them entirely when I fight them, so I don't know, we'll just put them in like bottom of C. The infected ladybug, which has like different grenades basically of spores that they send at you. There's actually kind of like a little boss fight in the haze lab when you fight one of these, which is kind of annoying because they have the ticks as well, and it's such a confined space that the grenades can fuck you up. I think I died to it once because of just how overwhelming it was, especially how small the space is, like I said, and there's those little spores that like blow up over time. So those are pretty annoying, but as an overall, I don't know, they're not as good as the normal ladybugs. I'll put them in like B tier below the aphid or the weevil. The infected larva, which have like a little same thing as like kind of like the weevil where it explodes, but it doesn't do damage to itself when it does it. There's so many of them in the haze. They're super annoying to fight a lot of the time, and I hate their freaking little AOE explosion that they did. Sometimes they do it once, sometimes they do it back to back to back. Not a big fan of them. Definitely going to D tier, but above everything else. And then there's the infected gnats, which the only thing they do is when you touch them, they disarm you. They make you drop your weapon, and they drop gnat fuzz, which is pretty useful in the haze because if you take damage to your gas mask enough and it's close to breaking, they can actually be quite useful because you can get the gnat fuzz to repair your gas mask. So that it kind of goes above the rest of the things in the haze because they're actually the only one that's like, in my opinion, useful. Everything else just drops fungal spores and just pretty much it for the most part, and there are other items that they usually drop, so they're not really super useful, but that's good because it drops gnat fuzz and you can use it to repair your armor, your gas mask. Stink bug, for the longest time, was my least favorite bug in the game. Only one bug took it later in the game, but I still can't stand them. Even in the late game, they're super annoying to fight, especially in that one area next to the between like the haze and red anthill. Like right there, there'll be like fucking 5 of them, and there's like one research station that has like 3 of them as well. Super annoying to fight. You literally have to have a gas mask to fight them, or you're just gonna die. Super fucking annoying to fight in the early game. I absolutely cannot stand stink bugs. I hate any enemy that has like a huge AoE that just does damage to you, that absurd amounts of damage a lot of the time. Fucking hate them. Yeah, that's below a mite. That's worse than a mite. Orb weavers, super easy to parry. They have very long telegraph attacks. I could pretty much just parry them all day and not have any problems with it. So it's a pretty easy way to get health back if I'm using like the compliance badge or whatever. They drop spotter parts, which can be useful to make repair glue later in the game, or you can use it to make the armor. They drop web fiber, and I think that's it. They have a kind of annoying attack where they shoot webs at you and can get you stuck, which is annoying. And they do tend to be in very inconvenient parts in the map, to where they can be annoying to like deal with in the late game. But they can't catch up to you. They're not as fast as you, so they're not that annoying. They're pretty easy to avoid. Just run past them and keep running. Usually is what I do. But even still, they're not hard to fight. They're where you can get spicy. So if you have like the spicy Cortana, they're a 3-shot if you max it out. So you know, it's not a terrible enemy. Just not one of my favorites. I put it above the ants, and the top is C. The diving bell spiders, they drop They might drop what you need to make the bubble helmet, but I can't tell you for sure. I know that they do refill your oxygen if you kill them, which can be useful in a lot of situations, but not something that you really want to rely on. They don't poison you or anything, and they don't really do that much damage either. They're just kind of annoying to fight in the late game because you run past them, but you can't really outswim them a lot of times. So, I don't know. I know I've been putting a lot of things in C tier, but I don't know where else to put this thing. There's really not much. I don't hate them, but I don't like them either. They do have their uses because they give you oxygen, but they are also annoying. I don't really know what they drop that's overly useful, so right there, I guess. Wolf Spider is probably the biggest, most intimidating enemy in the early game, but in the late game, they kind of become a joke to fight. They kind of like, they're just like the orb weavers, basically, where they're just like super easy to parry and easy to do a lot of damage. They're weak against spicy and such. So a spicy Colton or anything with a spicy enchantment or ability will absolutely destroy them. But in the early game, definitely they are super intimidating to fight. It's kind of scary to go out at night because of just how intimidating you are when you see them, and you can't outrun them. You can't outrun them. Even with Natural Explorer and I think light armor, they still outrun you. They're really fast. And they do absurd amounts of damage to you in the early game. Not to mention, they also poison you. They have like 2 different types of poison. One that lasts longer and does more damage, and the one that's kind of like the Orb Weaver Jr. poison. So, but I think they're cool. I think they're really cool, and they're really useful because they drop the Venom. You can use that to make the Wolf Fang, which could be a tier 2, or the Spider Fang, which could be a tier 2 weapon for you because they drop the Spider Fangs. You can also make a tier 2 bow out of it, which can have its uses by you can use the crow crossbow or in that point of the game. But yeah, the dagger, super useful because you can use it underwater to get things and cut things open and get milk molars and to get resources and stuff to craft different items and stuff. And just having a dagger underwater is super useful because you can get the melee and it does poison as well. So honestly, an A tier. Probably like below an aphid because of how useful it is. Bombardier Beetle, one of the more annoying enemies to fight because it does a little AoE splash damage to you and it can kind of fuck you up. So especially if they shoot like above you and it lands, it still does everything below it. So that can be annoying. They do have their uses because you can use them to make repair glue. You can use your shell to make repair glue, and the only thing that drops boiling glands, which you can use boiling glands to make ovens, which is imperative that you have ovens because you need to upgrade your gear to make the jewels and the globs that you need to get things to a higher tier that you're going to need for the late game. So just because of that, they got to be a B tier because to be able to make an oven is super useful. Put that like right there. But they are kind of annoying to fight, but they're not super bad. They're not super annoying, and they're actually pretty rare. I can only think of a few areas that they actually spawn. I don't think they actually spawn in the Ascended Yard area at all, from what I'm thinking of. They only spawn in the lower yard area in like a few select areas, and there's only like 2 or 3 of them. So yeah, they can be pretty annoying to find, but the only bug that drops boiling glands, which you need to make the oven. Next, we got the fire ants. Just gonna be honest with them, with you, like right there. The thing about fire ants is that they're always hostile unless you befriend the ant queen, which I did not do. So maybe if you befriend the ant queen, they'll probably be higher up. But they're just super nice. They're all over the Ascended Yard. I could probably kill like 500 of these. There are 2 super mixers also up in the Ascended Yard that have a shit ton of red ant or fire ants they have to fight. They're not really that terrible to fight because if you have the mint mace maxed out, they're like a 2 or a 3 hit. But not only that, there also are the orc ones that are a bit easier to fight. But they also spawn all over the map. Whenever you free Dr. Tully, they spawn all over the map as well. Just the worker ones though, but they're just all over the place. I mean, they only spawn in a certain section of like a pretty big area, but a certain area of the Ascended Yard area. But there's just so many of them. I killed like 600 of them by the end of my playthrough because there's how many they are that spawns, and they spawn in rocks and shit. They're just all over the place. They're super annoying to fight. The only reason that the soldier ants are higher is because they're only really around the entrances of of their hill, and so they're not as prevalent as the worker ants. But they're always hostile. I mean, all the soldier ants are always hostile, but this time the worker ants are hostile too all the time, and they spawn all over the place. Just annoying to fight. Another thing that I hate, fucking, no, it's definitely worse. Dust mites. I hate all the enemies in this game that slow you down, and dust mites are the first one that you encounter that does that. You probably first encounter them when you go into the little crevice behind the coal, the grill, and they're just annoying to fight. They slow you down, they slow your movement speed, they slow your swing speed, and they're just mites. They're a reskin that slows you down. What else is there to say? Like I said, I hate enemies the bugs that slow you down, and this one's no exception. This is just bad. I don't like it. Ladybird larva, probably my favorite out of the larva in the game, because they do drop a lot of stuff for you, like tough gunk. Their sizzle attack, doesn't really affect me very much. I don't think I've ever taken damage because I got hit so many times by a larva that I got the sizzle on it. It can be annoying because they're all over the map and they're underground, and they'll just pop out and attack you and all over the place, and they can be super annoying. But that's pretty much anything in the vicinity. Any bug that's in the vicinity yard other than roly polies are annoying. Let me just put it that way, because you're constantly getting attacked by them. They're all hostile, so that's the only reason why larvae are like kind of the ladybird larvae is annoying. But I do think they look cool. The sizzle has really no effect, and they drop a lot of good stuff like tough gunk, and they also drop the larva charm, which can help the sizzle once you're in the coal and the charcoals in the sandbox. So we're gonna put this guy. Where's the normal larva at? Right here. We're gonna put this guy in, like, honestly, bottom B tier. Where's the infected larva? Right there. Okay, that's fine. Next up is the antlion. There's actually two antlions, which are the ones that are digging there underground, the ones that pop up. They're really useful because you're used to make the antlion armor, which you pretty much, you don't need it, but it's super useful for when you go into the grill. And it's also really useful when you're in the sandbox, because you have that sizzle over time from being in the sun in the sandbox. So they're super useful. They make the antlion greatsword, which was a pretty decent weapon in the mid game, and they're not overly hard to fight. I mean, they have that little, when they burrow in the ground and pop up, that's pretty easy to avoid. You just run away. Other than that, their attacks are super easy to parry or just block in general. And they give you quite a bit of health if you're using the compliance badge. But if you're using something that does fresh damage, they're going to get killed in like a few hits. So honestly, not a big deal. I think they have pretty useful perks to them. Not really good enough to be an A tier. Actually, I might put them in A tier because they do have those little coves that the ones that are in the ground that pull you in have a bit more health, like the queens basically. They have these little holes in caves that can give you a lot of resources like salt, spicy candy, I think even sour candy, and a bunch of other stuff, and like quartzite and granite. So honestly, I put them like right there just because of that. If there's just the ones that aren't in the ground, then they'd be like B. But with the ones that are like the queen ones, they're definitely going to be an A. All right, next we have the termite workers. Termite shells can be easily make repair glue, so they're super useful. They're not super prevalent throughout the game, only really being they're in the junk box, underneath the shed, and in the wood pile. The wood pile is where they're at the most. Not nearly as annoying as a soldier ant, but I'll get into that, or the termite, I'll get in a minute though. The worker ants are probably just a better version of them. They can be used to make repair glue. Pretty easy to fight. Don't really do anything terrible to you. But like right there. The soldier ants and the soldier termites, on the other hand, I can't freaking stand them. Here's why. They have the freaking thing where they do like a little area around them where they do that little attack, and it will slow you down. Just like the freaking mites. The dust mites. It's the same shit. Can't stand things that slow you down, and the soldier termites are no exception. Super annoying to fight because of this, they slow you down. Most of the time I just avoid them. But they can be used to make the actually I don't know what they're used to make other than repair glue. I know they make weapons and armor. Don't really care though. They're going on like D tier. Like right here. Then the Termite King was a pretty easy fight. I guess it's kind of like a mini boss. Optional mini boss. I really don't know what it drops. So I'm just going to put in like C tier. Right there. The Ox Beetle is super annoying because it has a really long accurate distance and it can do a charge attack that does a shit ton of damage if you're not paying attention trying to run away, or they can launch rocks at you. But are super useful because they use to make repair glue, which they can make a lot. It's like 2 shells to make 1 repair glue. Super useful for that. Their horns are used to make something useful, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But their horns are really useful too, and they drop tough gunk as well, which is just super useful as well for most of the games. So, and their armor is really good. They used to make the hammer, the Black Ox hammer, which is a tier 3 hammer, the last hammer you'll get. Oh, the termite makes the termite axe. That's the tool I was thinking of. You need the termite soldiers to get the termite axe, which is a tier 3 axe, which you'll need in the game as well. But the Black Ox Beetle is definitely a lot better to fight than the termite soldier termites, and have a lot more useful things past that, because pretty much past when you get the termite axe, you don't really need to fight the soldier ants as much. You can just fight the worker, or the soldier termites. You can just fight the workers. So I'm going to put the Black Ox Beetle on like right there. Ladybird larva, or it's not larva. Ladybirds, honestly, pretty annoying as well. Hardly ever fought them in the late game. They drop like tough gunk. They are used to make a shield, the Ladybird shield, which I did use quite a bit until I made the fire ant shield. That's cool, I guess. But they are pretty annoying to fight, and it still does quite a bit of damage. But they're pretty easy to avoid as well. There's a reskin of the Ladybug, the 3rd one, or the 2nd reskin. So, and they don't have a super long aggro distance, but they do aggro on sight, and they do have some pretty damaging attacks and a decent health pool. So, I'm just going to put it, I don't want to put it in D tier because it's not that bad, but I'm going to put it on the bottom of C tier. Green Shield Bug, there's only like 2 places they spawn at, which is right next to when you go into Castle Mordrak, and underneath the shed area, where like, you know, a little porch thing in the shed the chair sits on, there's a crack and you fall down, there's that little cap gun that you can use to get gunpowder. There's one that spawns there, which is my first encounter with it, and I got absolutely destroyed because I didn't have my gas mask, and I tried to shoot with bows and I freaking couldn't stand it. Honestly, I do like them a bit more than stink bugs, because, you know, there's not as many of them and they're not in groups, and usually I only fight them when I'm prepared to, because they're pretty easy to avoid and they're not in areas that you need to be at. With that being said, the Green Shield Bug is like C tier as well. I don't really know what it drops that's super useful, if I'm thinking about it right now. Like, I don't know what it drops, because there's like the super stink thing and Green Shield Bug parts or something, and that's about it. But I don't remember ever using it for anything. Next up is the Infected Wolf Spider, which I don't think I ever fought, so I really have no opinion on it. So we're just going to put it in C tier. Next up is the Black Widow Spider, which, this specific one, I know exactly where it's at, and this is one in my playthrough that killed me the most. I don't know, maybe they're scaled differently, but this one right here absolutely destroyed me. They're super aggressive, but they're also super useful because they have the super spider venom, and you need that to summon I think the Brood Mother. Also, they are used to make the tier 3 dagger, which you need to get Pond Moss, which is pretty much the only thing I used it for. And that's about it. That's about it. But they are super hard to fight. Yeah, I got the timings down. Their 5-piece combos do a lot of damage. Their poison does a stupid amount of damage. They're around a bunch of spiderlings, which they can actually eat to get health. But the spiderlings also do poison when they hit you. So that's annoying. And They're super aggressive. You literally have to just get their timing down, or you're just gonna get destroyed. They're weak against Sour, which is one of the few enemies in this game, or the few bugs in this game is actually weak against Sour. So that's cool, I guess. So I usually use the Club of the Mother Demon and put the Sour effect on it, and that's why I use to fight against them before I had Acid Edge. Honestly, they're B tier because they do drop some pretty useful stuff. I do like the design. Black Widow spiders are cool, and you kind of expect them to be this aggressive and stuff. And once you get them down, they're not super annoying to fight, but I think the Spiderlings are pretty annoying. But we'll get to that here in a minute. We'll put them like right here. Next up is the spiny water flea. Trash. I don't know if I want to put an F tier or not. In all areas they're in, there's a swarm of them, and they're super annoying to fucking fight. I hate fighting things underwater. I'd rather not do it, and there's just so many of them in certain areas that I just want to fucking rip my fucking hair out when I'm in those areas. You know what? Fuck it. We'll put it on top of F tier. Fuck the damn spiny bitches. Okay, tiger mosquitoes. Honestly, worse than normal mosquitoes in pretty much every way. I mean, they do drop their tiger mosquito beaks. Other than that, they drop everything else that the normal mosquitoes do. And honestly, the tiger mosquito beak isn't even that useful because the weapon you get isn't good. The mosquito rapier or whatever isn't that good, and the tick sword just does what it does better. It's just super annoying. There's so many of them around Castle Mordrak. You got to bridge over Castle Mordrak while getting attacked by these fucking mosquitoes. They're annoying in the final super mixer, where I had to basically build a fort with 2 layers of fucking roof so they wouldn't be able to break through it because they're just so annoying. They knocked me off the freaking path to freaking Castle Mordrak that I made, which was really annoying and broke my shit and made me get pissed off. I don't like tiger mosquitoes, honestly. Normal mosquitoes are in D tier. This has to be a tier below it. Worst thing in E tier right now. The ticks are probably my favorite of the mite variants because they actually drop pretty decent stuff and are not super hard to kill. Pretty easy to avoid and only spawn in a couple areas that I can think of. So they're pretty easy to avoid. They drop tick fangs, which can be used to make a decent weapon, but didn't really use it very much. The tick sword or whatever. I don't really know what it's actually called. But they're pretty easy to avoid. They're weak against spicy damage, so the Kaltana can like 2 or 3 shot it. So yeah, they're not that big of a nuisance compared to the other 2 mites. But they're definitely not anything above like D tier. So we'll put them above like the spiderlings. Now the Black Widow spiderlings, they suck. I mean, they do give you a lot of web fiber, but I don't really care about web fiber because every single spider drops it. But they drop like 10 of them. But the annoying thing about them is how fucking fast they move, how small they are, and that they do poison damage to you, which can be super annoying when you're low health and just got done finishing the Black Widow. They are used as a way to get health to the Black Widow. Just no. I don't like the Black Widow spiderlings at all. Like right here. They poison you, they're fast, they don't really drop anything super useful, and there's so many of them in certain areas, and it's no. This, I believe, is the Wasp Soldier. Honestly, I hate the range attacks because they shoot things at you and poison you. Pretty much all their attacks poison you, but their charge attack is super easy to parry, and that'll knock them down. They do kind of fuck you up though if they do poison you. They can fuck you up because there's always multiple of them. They usually are in groups of 3, with 2 soldiers and 1 drone. Which I'll get into drones here in a second. I have a lot of things to say about drones. Honestly, I want to put it like right here. Hey, I don't really like fighting them because I don't like enemies that fly because a lot of times they're out of reach of your melee, and I didn't really use range at all. I did always have like a bow or something on me, but to be honest, I didn't like fighting with it. I'd rather just fight them with my weapon that did more damage, like my sword or whatever, my melee weapon. So But they are a lot better than the drone because they actually get within your reach a lot of the time, and they have attacks that you can parry and knock them out. Now the drone. Oh my god, the drone. By far my least favorite enemy in the game. Here's why. They constantly stay out your reach, so you can't melee them. They do this little fucking shaking bullshit that not only gives them either some kind of buff, or it just heals everything around it. Especially against the Wasp Queen. Well, I'll get into that here in a minute. But they do this little shit that's like impossible to shoot them, and it's like they do it all the time. They get more health, so you finally get him enough to do a little bit of damage. Oh, it's gone. Because they just did the freaking little call thing where they swing back and forth. They never get low enough for you to hit them. They don't have any melee attacks, so they just shoot at you from range and they can poison you. And yeah, they're just super annoying to fight. In every instance I've ever fought the drone in, they always are super annoying to fight. Even more so than the damn stink bug. Even more so than mites. At least mites are easy to fight and they're just so prevalent. Dude, drones, worst enemy in the game. By far the worst enemy in the game, in my opinion. Constantly staying out of reach. You have to use range, so if you don't have a bow, I guess you're fucked. They shoot fucking little venom at you, and it'll poison you and do damage over time. That's the only attack they have. Other than that, they're just flying around like this, and makes it impossible to shoot sometimes. Fuck that. So now we're down to the 7 bosses of the game, starting with the assistant manager. Actually a pretty tough boss fight. You fight it in the Black Ant Lab, and actually I think it took me like 2 attempts. It wasn't a super easy boss fight. It had a lot of like different, but it was a cool one because it had different like attacks that it did. That you had like they had the laser coming by. You got to dodge lasers or a little ring around the rosy bullshit. You know what I mean? So, but it wasn't really a super hard boss fight. A lot of the mandatory ones throughout the game aren't very hard compared to the summonable ones. Yeah, this one's like honestly like B tier. Put between them two. Next up is the Hedge Broodmother, which honestly gave me a lot of trouble when I first fought, but once you learn his moveset, it's actually pretty easy to. I usually beat him my first try towards the end of the game, which is when I fought was towards the end of the game anyway. It does summon like Orbeaver Juniors and Spiralings, which are pretty easy to fight because they have less health than normal ones. It drops really good shit because it drops what you need for the Club of the Mother Demon. It drops the armor, which is tier 3 heavy armor, which is really good because it does have the effect that poisons enemies no matter what weapon you have. I was actually trying to get the full set before I beat the game, but I never did. Just probably my favorite boss in the game, to be honest. I think probably the only thing that's like an S tier, because it's just how good it drops. It's a decent and fair boss fight, and it's hard at first, but once you learn, it's easy. It's just kind of in that area. It's like super out of the way though. Like the hedge is super out of the way by the end of the game, which is when I fought it. So you have to climb the hedge to get to it, which isn't fun either. But other than that, it's perfect. The Mant, I really don't even remember fucking anything about this boss fight. C tier. The Mantis, probably my second least favorite boss fight in the game. I hate that there has that attack where it rears up, and I complained about it a lot when I fought it. It rears up and it does that slam, and even if you parry it, you still are going to take bleed damage. That's so dumb. I hated fighting the freaking Mantis. I freaking hated it. And did a jump attack where I can literally go around the ring and turn on a fucking dime, and if it hits you, you're fucking pretty much dead. It was constantly me running away because I was taking bleed damage the entire fucking fight. I was trying to constantly get between me and the bush, or put the bush between me and the fucking Mantis, because I needed to heal constantly. I need like 80 fucking bandages to fight this thing. So I only fought it once. It does drop the scythe, that's pretty cool, but I don't think it's a super useful weapon, and I also don't think its armor is super good. I just fought it to do it, so honestly gonna put it in like D tier, but like at the top of D. Director Schmechter, I actually died to him once only because I was dumb and stood in a laser for like 2 seconds and it killed me. Overall, it's a pretty easy fight. Like I said, most of the story fights are pretty easy. This one is no exception. You get the acid edge from him. I think, or I know you get corporate kickback mutation, which is actually pretty freaking useful. I mean, it gives you health when you melee, and it gives you a lot of health. It just doesn't prong very often. Instant fight, you need to get the true ending. I'll put it in like A tier. Like right here. Next up is the Wasp Queen, my least favorite boss fight in the game because it takes fucking forever and it's not even interesting. All of his attacks are so easy to dodge, or so easy to parry, so easy to block. It summons things. It summons the drones towards like the end of the fight, and the drones constantly healing. It summons my least favorite enemy in the game while I'm fighting it, and the fight lasts so fucking long. It's such a long fight. God damn, it's so long. And the only reason it took me as many attempts as it did because it kept freaking spawning the drone, and I'd get pissed off trying to kill the fucking drone. And I wouldn't pay attention to the Wasp Queen. The Wasp Queen would hit me with some shit, poison me, and I'd fucking die. God, I can't stand drones. This thing's going in F tier. Didn't stand the Wasp Queen. Could not stand it. Just because it spawned the drone. Next up is the hardest boss in the game by far. The Infected Broodmother. Took me about an hour and a half to beat it, and honestly it was a pretty entertaining fight. I did get frustrated at times just because of how difficult it is, but it wasn't difficult in a bad way. The only thing that annoyed me the most about this fight was the fact that its own explosions hitting it healed it. If that wasn't a thing, that I probably would have liked this boss a lot more and probably would have put it in the S tier, but in my opinion it's not S tier because of just how much the odds are stacked against you in the fight. To be honest, it doesn't have a super huge health pool, and you probably just need a shield so you don't get freaking the debuffs stacked on you, because it does have a lot of debuffs that last the entire fight. Like I know there's the debuff that makes you get less health from healing items. There's the debuff that makes it take less damage, or you deal less damage. Shit like that was really annoying to deal with, and just the explosions, though, were just super annoying how it heals itself for all explosions. And not only that, it spawns in spiralings that heals it as well. I think its roar even heals it. It counts as an explosion, I guess. So many things heal it. It's such a long fight. But it's not as bad. It's not nearly as bad as the Wasp Queen. I actually would be willing to put it in the top of A tier. I don't really know how useful its drops are because I only fought it because to fight every boss in the game, so I pretty much just fought it immediately ended the game. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the Infected Broodmother. It has 3 phases. The first phase is kind of a joke, but this is the boss tier lists from me playing Grounded. It took me about 90 hours in the game. Yeah, man, let me know what you think in the comments. Fortunately, there's not a lot of bugs that I actually thought were super amazing. Only the Broodmothers in S tier. A lot of things were C tier and B tier. And then we had a few things that were in F. Just the way it is, just how I play through the game. Y'all might experience it a lot differently than me. But throughout my playthrough, this is what I thought about each individual bug in the game and boss. So here it is. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in another one. Peace.